Welcome to yet another edition of the Stats and Stacks podcast, where today we're going over UFC Vegas 103, Kape versus Almabayev. First things first, make sure you smash that like button. Give a follow over on Twitter, over on Instagram, over on TikTok, wherever there's social media. There is the Stats and Stacks podcast. Sorry for the bad glare that's going on. And I'm a little under the weather myself. I don't have any of my notes. This is just a terrible, terrible, terrible time in regards to trying to film the pod. But whether I'm sick, whether I have the notes, whether I could do it in the middle of the day and there's a bad glare, I don't give a fuck. We're gonna make sure we get it out at some point. It is what it is. We'll make it work. It'll probably be a quicker one here, as I can hardly freaking function right now. Last week, not the greatest week. Got absolutely murdered. But it happens. That's the way it is. The week before, we absolutely murdered it. Got one fight wrong the entire time. This time, it feels like we got one right. Our boy Juicebox lost, but that's okay. He's only 6-0. He'll be better. It'd be good for him to get that loss, taste it, realize what needs to be worked on, and we'll go from there. We have our boy Fluffy came through as always, and we had Matsumoto, who I finally gave in and said he's real. Get a little bit robbed. I don't want to say the word robbery, but he did outstrike Rob Font, and he got like 7 takedowns and lost the fight. It's not that it was a robbery; it's that the swing round was round one. And I know Rob Font started off hot, but he also had that real dirty touch glove jab thing that happened, which was a big moment for him, which was just really kind of dirty in all honesty. I don't think he meant to be dirty, but it was a gray line. But then Matsumoto still went out there and got like 4 takedowns and a bunch and kind of took over the latter end of that round. So the fact that that was the round that cost him the fight is a little annoying, but whatever. It is what it is. You know what you're getting into when you're betting a Kazakhstan fighter. Is he Kazakhstani? No, he's not. A Brazilian fighter going to Seattle and fighting one of the few Americans that had a chance. It is what it is. We're going to be hard headed. We're not going to learn our lesson. We're going to go right back to it here with UFC Vegas 103. No crowd swaying on this one. So, again, don't feel the greatest. So, we're just going to hop right into this and kind of power through. No notes, anything like that. We're just going to get through this. First fight of the night. We are looking at Montana De La Rosa. And I got to pull up the odds considering I don't have the notations on here. All right. So, we have Montana De La Rosa at plus 125. We have Luana Carolina at minus 150. Over 2.5 minus 475, under 2.5 at plus 325. Let's start with Dread Carolina. She's not that good, in all honesty. She's predominantly a striker. She's fought an okay level of competition, fighting Lipsky, fighting JoJo Calderwood, fighting Loopy, but there's a lot of weird things going on here. First and foremost, she's just a one-dimensional striker. She's a very good striker. She showed a lot where she was in a pretty close striking match against Molly Meatball McCann, pretty close striking match against Joanne Wood. But when you really go back and you look at her UFC, they're questionable. Lucy Pudilova is a striker who thought she turned into a wrestler. And Lucy looked absolutely terrible that day. She tried to go out there and grapple, and it just didn't work. Before that, you had Julia Stolyarenko, who officially only has like 2 wins in the UFC. She's not very good herself and has terrible cardio. And she got finished in the third round because of her bad cardio. Ivana Petrovich has yet to win in the UFC. She's not very good. Jojo and Molly. Again, these are 2 strikers, and she's a striker herself, and she lost to 2 strikers, so that's concerning. The win over Loopy looks really good, but when you really look at it in hindsight, Loopy took that fight up a weight class on 7 days' notice. She just fought the week before, and then she fought back to back weeks. And she wasn't able to get the takedown over a much, much larger girl. Juana Poliana Botello. She's not very good at all, and she only won a split. And then, of course, Ariana Lipsky, and then Priscilla Cachoeira's got awful. So yeah, her wins in the UFC aren't very good. Her losses are to strikers, which is funny, because this fight is another grappler versus striker matchup. She generally wins those, but Julia Stolyarenko has no cardio whatsoever. Lucy can't really wrestle. Ivana is a grappler that can't really wrestle. The loopy one, it got up a weight class on 7 days notice. Pollyanna, I got a grappler that can't really wrestle. That's the issue. That is the issue. She's a good striker. She truly is, and she can't really wrestle herself. But she's fighting grapplers, not wrestlers. Montana De La Rosa is a little bit more of a wrestler here. She's mainly a grappler as well, but she can stand up. She's not great at it, but she's gotten much better, much improved. She's fought the better level of competition, fighting Tatiana Suarez, Andrea Lee twice, fighting JJ Aldridge and Macy Barber. All of these are top five, top 10 girls. Viviana Araujo, Myra Bueno Silva just fought for a title. Like these are really, really good fighters here. She's taken a lot of L's to those. That's not great. But she's winning the ones she's supposed to. She's losing the ones against contenders. She's never going to be a contender. She's never going to be a champion. But neither is Dread Carolina. In regards to the striking, Carolina's a much better striker. But when it comes to the wrestling, I think she will be able to. I think Montana will be able to get the takedown. And when it comes to the grappling, it's not even close. A lot of people are on either Dread by decision or Montana by submission. I'm actually looking at Montana via KO, plus 1200. The reason being, she has really, really vicious ground and pound. And I've seen it. Ariana Lipsky against Montana De La Rosa. She ultimately got a ground and pound finish in round two. I can see her doing the exact same thing. She is not someone that just sits there, slaps on the body triangle, and tries to sub you. She's trying to hurt you when she gets you down there. If she gets you down there, she doesn't want to have to do it again, and so she tries to put you out while she's down there. So I think the KO is extremely live. I think her in general is extremely live. That's the only way I'm looking. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick Montana De La Rosa, and I'm going to bet Montana De La Rosa. Next fight of the night, we have Charles Energy Johnson, we have our first line flip of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. I bet him at plus 120. He is now minus 115. Ramansbek Timarov at minus 105 now. Over 2.5 minus 215, under 2.5 plus 165. Let's start with Ramazan because it's not that everyone's on Charles Johnson, it's that everyone's fading Ramazan. The reason being he's 18-2, but this record is a little skewed. The main reason being he is one of the his his training camp is with if I don't know if you remember Makhmed Muradov. That's kind of the camp that he's with, and a lot of his MMA fights are in the Muradov promotion. So imagine your fight team putting on fights and you're fighting on that event. They're going to give you the easiest matchups you can get. And he goes out there and he gets a job done. He's 18-2, and look at this round one finish. He did it in the UFC, so I'll give him credit to CJ Fagara. But CJ gets rocked all the time. Everyone's saying he's super tough. He's hard to put away. That's true, but he gets rocked in damn near every single fight. He just actually went out this time. Wear and tear caught up with him. So he knocked out someone that gets rocked all the time. And then round one knockout, round one knockout, round one knockout. Gosh, it's pretty bad. Like all of his wins are really, really early. Round one knockout. He had a decision here, which is nice. He went back to back decisions, but round one knockout, round one knockout. Then he got submitted. So that's a little questionable. We don't really know what his ground game is like. We don't see any submissions on his record. They are all knockouts, even ground and pound finishes that are on his record. Again, he goes for the knockout. I don't know how his ground game is, but it's very hard to take him down. Granted, he hasn't fought the best level of competition. His record is a little skewed. You look at it and you see 15-8 and 9-3, but then you go and you check their records and they haven't won a fight since. So it's again, his Muradov team knew what they were doing. They're not going to give him a losable fight at their promotion event. They knew what they were doing. The nicer looking record, but they're in actuality, the guy's like 40 and absolute trash. So again, this guy's record's a little padded, but he does have a ton of power and he does have pretty, pretty decent takedown defense. On the other side, we have Charles Johnson. And Charles Johnson is exactly what Charles Johnson will always be, and that is a cardio machine. He doesn't carry a ton of power. I know he knocked out Josh Van in his last fight, but outside of that, he generally doesn't get a ton of knockouts, but he's pretty durable himself. I've seen him rocked a few times. I've seen him knocked out before. Brandon Royval knocked him out, hashtag Raw Dog. But outside of that, he's fought a good level of competition. He has, and he's a little bit of a generalist. He doesn't have a ton of power, but he is a good striker. He doesn't really have good takedown defense, but he has a really good get up game. He won't really offensively wrestle, but he does have a decent ground game. Like he'll throw up some Darce chokes and some anacondas, kind of like a front choke series. He's pretty good at. So he's not bad anywhere. He's not great anywhere. He's just a little bit of a generalist with really, really, really good cardio and decent durability. And that's the thing. If he goes out there and he fights someone like what's his name? I'm so sorry. Again, this is going to be the worst podcast. He fights someone like Ramazan, and Ramazan gasses himself out trying to get the knockout. I could totally see that, and Charles Energy Johnson will take over. I could also see Ramazan catching him. It's not as if Charles Johnson is incapable of getting KO'd. It's happened before, and he's 34 years old. So I was all over the dog with Charles Johnson. He's more proven. Now that he's the favorite, I don't like it as much because he could just go out there and get chin checked. This is a total pass for me. I don't like the over under, just mainly on, I think the over hits if it's Charles Johnson. I think the under hits if it's Ramazan. So there's just a lot of factors there. I'll still side with Charles Johnson, but now that he's the favorite, I don't really want to bet at all. So I'll pick Charles Johnson. The bet would have been Charles Johnson a few days ago. But if you really want to jump in, you still can now, I guess. Next fight of the night, we have Andrea Lee. Let's check the odds here. Sorry. We have Andrea Lee at plus 170 now. AJ Aldridge minus 205. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 500. Under 2.5 at plus 340. Let's start with JJ Aldridge. She's a pretty decent striker. She just doesn't really carry a ton of power. Her takedown defense has improved a ton, and her offensive wrestling has improved. But now she kind of fancies herself a wrestler in some of these last few matchups, and she needs to stop doing that. The fight against Na Liang, she got a few takedowns. The loss against Ariana Lipsky is because she continually tried to wrestle. And the loss against Erin Blanchfield, her takedown defense actually looked very, very good, but ultimately got caught in a submission. Her ground game's not that great. I know she submitted Na Liang, or no, she didn't. It was ground and pound. That was mainly on Na Liang gassing that out, not anything JJ Aldridge was doing. Um, I don't know. She's always in super super close fights. She throws a decent amount of volume. She looks pretty clean on the feet. But without a lot of power, it's really just skewed on how the judges are viewing it. On the other side, we have Andrea Lee. That's the exact same thing. She throws a decent amount of volume out there, not really any power whatsoever. She might have the better ground game, but she can't wrestle to save her life. If anyone's getting a takedown, it's going to be JJ Aldridge in this matchup if she wants to go back to the takedown fest. But I don't think she will. I think they will tit for tat on the feet. Andrea Lee is, I can't even say she's fought the better girls. They've fought around the same level of competition, but she's on a big losing streak right now. Montana De La Rosa, Miranda Maverick, Natalia Silva, Macy Barber, Viviana Araujo. Now, I'll be honest with you, all of those girls that's literally like outside of Montana De La Rosa, those other four are the top five in the division. So, not really any fault losing to any of those girls, but she did it consecutively. So, it is what it is. She has a lot of split decisions on her record. Her last loss was by split. Her loss to Macy Barber by split. She has now lost to Lauren Murphy by split, Jojo Calderwood by split. A lot of split decision losses. Not really as many wins. I could see this one being a split decision as well. Obviously, you can take the over, but that's minus 500. You're not getting any value whatsoever on that. So you're going to have to pick a side. To me, it's dog or pass. But it might be another one of these. Maybe Angela Hill will go up a weight class, and we can just bet the split decision prop, because these two just always go to split no matter what. So, I guess you could still bet the split decision prop here, but it's only like plus 300. It was not good at all. Vegas expects this fight to be a split, and I think she was only like plus 400 or something to win by split. It's something ridiculously low. So at the end of the day, the pick is gonna be Andrea Lee's kind of older. The pick is gonna be JJ Aldridge. The bet would be dog or pass with Andrea Lee, or you can just take the fight to go to split decision at plus 300 and call it a day. Next fight of the night, we're looking at Lucas Almeida. He's a pretty decent dog here at plus 180, going against Danny Silva at minus 220, over 2.5, plus 100, under 2.5, minus 130. A lot of that over under is because of Lucas Almeida. He is the definition of killer be killed. He is a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, so he does know what's going on the ground. The dude throws volume for days. He never stops throwing, which is weird because he loves to counter, but he counters with volume. It's like weird. Like he doesn't just count. He's not one of these low volume counter strikers. You try to swing on him, he'll evade or he'll parry, and then he'll throw like a five strike combination, and then he waits for you, and then he throws like a five strike combination. So he counters in combination. It's pretty unusual, and kind of throws people off. He never really catches you with the first one. It's always like 1 in 3 or interesting stuff with this dude. His wrestling is not good at all, but he does crack. He does hit decently hard, but on the flip side, his chin is not good. I've seen him rocked a plethora of times. I've seen him knocked out before. Like this guy, his durability just isn't where it needs to be. So I don't know. It's very, very. You got knocked out by Andre Fili. Like that's not a good look 2 fights ago. But at the same breath, he knocked out Mike Trezana, who was not knocked out at that point. He's 34. He's not getting any younger. He's just kind of a fun, exciting watch. I don't know why he's on a Vegas card, but it is what it is. Most of his fights do not go to decision, and that's why the over 2.5 is at plus 100. On the other side, we have Danny Silva. I don't really know what to make of Danny Silva. I don't think he's that great. But Lucas Almeida did just fight Timothy Kawamba and win, and I think Danny Silva and Timothy Kawamba are very, very similar. They have the same build; they kind of look alike, and they both are volume strikers with an okay wrestling background. That's exactly what this guy is. I think he trains with. Oh God, who does he train with? Cub Swanson? Is this Cubs boy? I think it might be. Again, coming off Dana White Contender Series, and then I think he had one fight in the UFC that I watched. Josh Kulabau. Yeah, Josh Kulabau is a good win. Do I think he won that fight? Not really. I thought the split should have went to Josh, but it is what it is. He just beat a tall, lanky striker in Josh Kulabau. That's essentially what Lucas Almeida is, but it went to split, and Lucas Almeida just beat Timothy Kawamba, who is kind of a younger wrestle boxer, which is what Danny Silva is. So at the end of the day, it's going to be dog or pass for me. I think Danny Silva should get the job done, but at this line at plus 180, I'm going to be on Lucas Almeida just based on not common opponents, but styles make fights. So the pick is going to be Lucas Almeida. The bet's going to be Lucas Almeida. Next fight, or the under, because this may not go long. Next fight of the night, we have Douglas Silva de Andrade, whose name takes up half the screen. He's going to be an underdog here. Oh, at plus 235, going up against Sexy Mexi John Castaneda at minus 290, over 2.5 minus 270, under 2.5 plus 200. Let's start with Douglas Silva de Andrade, because he's slowing down, and justifiably so. The dude is showing that he's 39 years old, so God knows how old he really is. A lot of times these people come over and they lie about how old they are to just garner more attention towards the UFC wanting to sign them. He says he's 39, but he could be older. He is also a little bit of a generalist, but he's slowing down a lot. He's starting to get chin checked in all of his fights. He got chin checked in a Cody Stamen fight. That's very concerning because Cody I don't think Cody could beat up a high schooler in regards to power. He's very pillow-fisted. Miles Johns went out there and outstruck Douglas De Silva Andrade. That's not good. Miles Johns is a very low-volume wrestler. He didn't shoot any takedowns. He went out there and he struck with Douglas and won the fight in a unanimous decision. That's very, very, very concerning. I don't know. He's coming off of a knee surgery and that Cody Stamen fight. I forgot if it was this what the surgery was, it a knee surgery or a hand surgery? Either way, his body's starting to break down with him getting rocked all the time. Just as of late, he was an all right fighter in his prime. He's just out of his prime, and he's hitting that Tony Ferguson level. It's coming, and it's coming fast. Not good or bad anywhere. He's another generalist. Has okay jiu-jitsu. He has decent takedown defense. He has okay striking. Decent power though. The dude cracks. That part doesn't go away. So as long as you're fighting someone that has a chin, you're okay. If they don't have a chin, it's always going to be concerning. John Castaneda is Mexican, so he automatically has a chin. Sexy Mexi is a lot better wrestler than I remember him being, but he is predominantly a striker. His jiu-jitsu is not great, but he does have decent wrestling and he does have good striking. He can crack himself, and he generally doesn't get hurt too often in his fights. You can outstrike this guy. Daniel Santos broke him just with cardio. Daniel Marcos is one of the best strikers in the weight class and was able to piece him up. But outside of that, if he's able to mix in his takedowns with his striking, like he did against Mr. Perfect, Kung Ho Kang, like he did against Muin Gaffarov, like he did against their common opponent, Miles Johns, then that's a thing here. And again, I honestly I did fight tape and didn't realize they both fought Miles Johns. One lost to in a striking fight. The other one went out there and choked him out in round three. I've seen his cardio look good and bad. You never really know, but Daniel Santos is known for pushing a pace, and I think it was just a pace he couldn't keep up. So the pick is going to be John Castaneda. The bet's going to be John Castaneda, and there's not a lot of huge favorites I like here. I'm unfortunately going to have probably way too much exposure to John Castaneda. I'll have him in a few parlays. Next fight of the night, we have Chepe Mariscal at minus 455 going up against Ricardo Ramos at plus 350. Over 2.5 plus 110, under 2.5 at minus 140. Let's start with Ricardo Ramos. He trains over at Team Alpha Male with Uriah Faber and all them. His wrestling's okay. His jiu-jitsu is very good. He has a mean rear naked choke. I believe he has a ton of RNC finishes. He loves his spinning back elbow. It's a problem. He spams it like crazy. He got that one knockout against Eamon Zahabi with the spinning back elbow, and now he thinks that that's his thing. And he continually throws it over and over and over again. The crazy thing is he got another spinning back elbow win over Danny Chavez. So we keep saying he throws it too much and then he goes in and gets a second one. But yeah, on the feet, he's gotten much better. He's more of a wrestler, grappler. He has gotten better on the feet, but he himself, his durability is not great. He can get chin checked. He can get submitted. He's just kind of a killer be killed fighter. I kind of compared him to a young Charles Oliveira at one point, but he's just is yet to hit his stride. He's not young anymore. He's 29 years old. So at some point, Charles moved up to 155 and looked much better. I think Ramos used to fight at 130 and moved up to 145. That was another reason for the comparison, but I don't know. He just didn't turn the corner and become a killer like Charles did. He has all the same tools. He basically has the same like level of competition progressing, but he just hasn't turned the corner yet. On the other side, we have Chepe Mariscal, who is a straight berserker. He trains at Team Elevation over with Gaethje and them. He has really good wrestling, judo mainly. He has good striking. He has good jiu-jitsu. And he has cardio. He has a pace and he pushes a pace and he's there to hurt you. He also is Mexican, so he can't get knocked out automatically. But he does have really good durability. And he's fought a good level of competition, even on the regional scene. I think the guys he fought on the regional scene were better than the guys he fought in the UFC. He went out there and killed Damon Jackson. He beat Morgan Charrier in France. That was impressive with a split. He beat Jack Jenkins, which Jack's broke his arm, but it is what it is. He went out there and killed Trevor Peak in his debut in the UFC. But before even making it to the UFC, he fought Steve Garcia. He fought Sean Serrano, who's in the UFC. He fought Joe Anderson Brito. He fought Bryce Mitchell, Carl Deaton. All these guys were in the UFC. So Gregor Gillespie, like this level of competition is insane prior to the UFC. Again, I think Gregor Gillespie and Bryce Mitchell and Joe Anderson Brito are tougher matchups than anything he's fought in the UFC yet. And they're tougher matchups than Ricardo Ramos. I think he should go out there and kill Ricardo Ramos. And he's minus 455 for a reason. So the pick is going to be Chepe. The bet's going to be Chepe, and it's probably Chepe inside the distance, in all honesty. Next fight of the night, we have Austin Lane. And he is a. Is it Austin Lane next? Sorry, I will pull this up. Yep. We have Austin Lane at plus 360 going up against Mario Pinto at minus 470. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 plus 100. Under 1.5 minus 130. Most of that is because of Austin Lane and his durability, which is god awful. There's a weird theory about like former football players who come into MMA and they've had so many undocumented concussions that their chins aren't very good. And you see it over and over again. You see it with Alonzo Menafield. Almost all of his losses are by KO. You look, excuse me, you look at Brendan Schaub played in the NFL. Most of his losses are by KO. Greg Hardy, most of his losses are by KO. And Austin Lane, he has 5 career losses, and they are, I believe, they're all by KO. They are all by KO. So, yeah, a little concerning here. He isn't really good anywhere. He's not a very good striker. He's not a very good wrestler. He has zero jujitsu whatsoever. He just is an athlete. That's all I can really say about him. He is a chinny athlete, and he usually has good game plans. If he fought Denise, he went out there and he wrestled his ass off, and he looked fine, but then he gassed out, and then he got knocked out. His cardio is not good at all. Justin Tafa, he went out there and got knocked out in 1 minute. Robelis to Spain, he went out there and wrestled him. And when he wrestled, he took him down and just sat on top. He got him out and just sat there the entire time. The referee didn't want to stand them up because he was in a dominant position, but he had no urgency for ground and pound. He had no urgency to try to go for a submission. He just wanted to hold on for dear life. He's not going to be able to do that against Pinto. I think Pinto is an overrated prospect, in all honesty. But the one thing I did notice is that Pinto on the regional scene had pretty decent takedown defense. And the few times he did get taken down, he is a very urgent get up game. He does not settle and stay down at all. He's 9-0 and he's absolutely massive. Other good part about Pinto's game is that he has good cardio for a heavyweight. I've seen him look fine in a 5-round fight before. So Lane has no durability and no cardio and wants to just take you down and hold you down. Pinto is a very good get up game and very, very good cardio. So at some point, he's going to catch Lane. Lane kind of fights scared a lot. This Pinto guy is something that the UFC is going to try to build because of how huge he is coming off of Contender Series. Dana loves him, a big old scary looking dude. And that's kind of what they have here. He looks a lot less intimidating than this picture. I don't know where this picture was taken. In real life, he does not look this scary, but he's going to look that scary going against Austin Lane because Austin Lane is trash. So the pick is Pinto, the bet's Pinto. I hate the odds, but they're probably appropriate going against Austin Lane. Then we have our main card opener. We're into the main card, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at Danny Left Hand God, the worst nickname, Barlow at minus 300 going up against Sean Patterson. Where's he at? At plus 240. Over under set at 1.5. Over 1.5 plus 100. Under 1.5 minus 135. Why is the over under set at 1.5? Because of Sam Patterson. The dude does not have durability whatsoever. His striking's okay, but he has very, very, very tall man defense. Loves to just leave his chin out there. Loves to carry his hands extremely low. He only has two career losses, and they're both by KO. The dude gets rocked in basically every single fight, and he decided, you know what? It's just the weight cutting. I've cut way too much weight. I'm going up to welterweight, and it's going to help my durability. He fought Johan Lioness, who is a huge power puncher. He's not good at all, but he can hit really hard. What did he do? He took him down and he subbed him right away. So that was smart, honestly. Kiefer Crosby, same ordeal. Just a power puncher. Sam Patterson takes him down and subs him right away. I like his game plan. He has a sneaky good jiu-jitsu game. His wrestling's not great. His striking's not great. His durability is not great, but he does have a good BJJ game. So if he can get you down there, you are in a little bit of trouble. And he does seemingly have a good gas tank. So he has good BJJ and good cardio. Those are good things to have. His striking is serviceable, but god damn, his hands are low when he gets chin checked all the time. The reason this fight scares me for him is because Danny Barlow, all he has is that left hand to God, and he might literally send Sam Patterson to God if he hits him with that left. Sam Patterson and his tall man defense is just asking to get clipped. Danny Barlow is rocking 100% takedown defense thus far in the UFC. Very, very short sample size. But again, 100% is 100% until it's not. On the feet, not even close. Danny Barlow so much faster. He hits so much harder. He's going to decimate Sam Patterson on the feet. On the ground, I don't really know. He's not that good of a jiu-jitsu practitioner. But if Sam Patterson, the British tall man, can't get it down to the ground, then what does it matter? I don't think Danny Barlow's jiu-jitsu game matters if it's going to be a stand-up affair. He just needs to sprawl and brawl, and he needs to hit him with that left hand to God, and he will win this fight early, and that's why it's a 1.5. I don't see this thing starting round two. I think Sam Patterson somehow gets a takedown and subs him real quick, or more likely, he gets caught and Danny Barlow puts his lights out within the first 3 minutes of the fight. So the pick is going to be Danny Barlow. The bet's going to be Danny Barlow, but I also might just have a few stabs on that under 1.5, maybe the alt line 2.5. I don't see this thing going the distance. Next fight of the night. Oh, we are looking at William Gomi. God, I hate William Gomi. Um, as a favorite, this is even grosser. William Gomi at minus 200 going up against Hyder Emil. I'm not a fan of Hyder Emil at plus 165. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 minus 240, under 2.5 plus 180. Let's start with William Gomi. He is the most boring fighter in the UFC. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. He loves his body kicks. He loves his jab. That's it. That's it. That's it. He throws a really quick left body kick and he jabs you. And he does not like to get hit. He has some of the worst optics I've ever seen when you hit this guy. He does not like getting hit, but he trains out of that camp with Cyril Gahn, MMA Factory Paris or whatever it is. They don't get hit. Cyril Gahn doesn't have the greatest chin, but he's very hard to hit. William Gomi, fast twitch, does not have a good chin, but very hard to hit. And that's why he just jabs you. He always has a reach advantage, and he's just going to jab and body kick you and jab and body kick you. And it is the most boring fight you could ever watch in your life. The UFC gave him Joe Anderson Brito, who is an absolute berserker, just to try to get some sort of action out of him. And this motherfucker somehow wins a split in France. This dude also always fights in France. Like, that's the thing. He's fought in America one time. One time. All the rest of his fights are fights catered to him in France. And the one time he got a challenge, he won a split decision in France that was very, very questionable. So this fight's not in France, and he has another killer in front of him in Hayder Emil. Hayder Emil is Gilbert Melendez's like prodigy. He's not great. He's 10-0, but he has pretty decent takedown defense, pretty decent get up game, and is an absolute killer on the feet. He's a berserker, Joe Anderson Brito style. March forward, put his head down, and swing, baby. That's all he wants to do. He will get tired doing that, but he's going to drag you into deep waters with him. And he just wants you to get just as tired as he is. He's undefeated for a reason. I think he's finished almost every single one of his fights. I know he went to decision on Contender Series, but outside of that, he fought in Bellator and won a split. He is an okay ground game, but he usually just goes, marches forward and strikes. And he's very confident now. I mean, he fought Fernie Garcia. Fernie Garcia has never been knocked out. He went out there and got a standing TKO in the second round. Ji Young Lee, he went out there, and that's a huge Japanese prospect that the UFC was all about. He went out there and clipped him and put him fully out within a minute. He's there to get hit, and I've seen Hyder get rocked before. But if you start a firefight, that is not how William Gomi wants to fight at all. So I hope that Hyder just marches across the octagon and he takes a body kick. This is my prediction. He goes out there, and he either loses all of round one, or after like 2 minutes of the jab and body kicks, Hyder says "fuck it" and just marches forward. That's what he does, and then he just swings for the fences, and he can put Gomi's lights out for sure. And Gomi could catch him, to be in all honesty. I mean, I've seen him rock before, but he's 10-0. It's more likely that he puts Gomi out. So the pick is gonna be Hyder Emil. The bet's gonna be Hyder Emil, and I think the wrong man is favored. Next fight of the night. We have a sneaky, really, really good fight here. We have Nazareth Akparas at plus 230 going up against Esteban Ribovic at minus 285. Over under set at 2.5. Over 2.5 is minus 215. Under 2.5 plus 165. Let's start with Esteban. He was in the fight of the year at UFC 300 against Daniel Zellhuber. It was a joy going back and doing fight tape, rewatching that fight. This guy's nuts, man. He's absolutely crazy. He's super young. He was born in what, 96? So I guess he's not as young as I thought he was. He's 28. But he has good striking, a decent amount of power. Um, I wouldn't say he has good jiu-jitsu. He has a good Kimura, and he uses it to get the sub, or he uses it to get the sweep, because he does not have good takedown defense. Dude can't really wrestle at all. But it doesn't matter because he has a really good get-up game. His one loss in the UFC or his one loss in general was to an old training partner in Loic, Radzhabov, and he had to get 11 takedowns. And you're like, damn, his takedown defense is awful. Well, what I'm thinking is that means he got up 11 times. He's very, very hard to hold down if you do get him down. He has really, really good cardio, and he's just like one of the people that I would hate to fight the most in the UFC because he has a ton of power. He never stops coming forward, kind of like Hyder Emil, and he just swings and never gets tired. It's scary. He's not the most technical guy. He goes out there and really just kind of brawls, but he's super exciting. He's super fun, and his cardio carries him. His cardio, it's usually you have power, or you have cardio. This guy has both. And he doesn't have good wrestling, but he has a great get up game because of that cardio. On the other side, we have Nazareth Akbaras, who is also fine to get into a firefight. He has been knocked out before. That does concern me a little bit. But he's in a lot of fun fights. His fight against Jared Gordon was super fun. His fight against Landon Quiones was super fun. Everyone says he looks like Calvin Gaslam, which he does, but he fights nothing like him. Nazareth is a striker through and through. He is not a grappler at all. He does not have good jiu-jitsu. He won't really even shoot a takedown. I mean, Dan Hooker got 3 takedowns against him to win the fight. And when Dan Hooker is out wrestling you, that's a concern. But I don't think that's what Esteban's going to do. I think he's going to go up there. He's going to march forward and try to scrap. And Nazareth's a very good counterpuncher. So that's going to be interesting. He doesn't hit very hard. He has a few knockout wins on his record, but he mainly goes to decision. So I see this overhitting as well. But I think Nazareth's extremely live, but something in my gut of guts is just telling me that the optics of Esteban moving forward, the momentum he has after UFC 300, he's the one that the UFC wants to win. I could definitely see Esteban winning a split. I could see Nazareth winning a split. I think this fight is going to be super, super fun. It's going to be a stand-up war, and probably the one I'm looking forward to the most on the card. The pick is going to be Esteban. The bet really should be dog or pass because I think these lines are off. But I think I'll side with the favorite. The pick is Esteban. The bet is Esteban. Next fight of the night is not gonna be the fight of the night. We have the Cuban Missile Crisis, the best nickname in the game. Julian Marquez going up against Cody Brundage at plus 115. Julian Marquez is somehow a favorite at minus 135, over 1.5 plus 115, under 1.5 minus 145. Let's start with Cody Brundage because everyone's going to talk about, oh, he has that quit in him. You know what? You're right. You ain't lying. He quits a lot in his fights. We saw it in the Abdulrazak Al Hassan fight. We saw it in the Jacob Malkoon fight. All he does is get DQ wins. It's very interesting. He did wrestle D1. He's a decent wrestler. His striking is not good at all, but what people don't notice is how hard he hits. We've seen him rock multiple people. He rocked Bo Nickel. He rocked um, Rodolfo Vieira really badly. He knocked out Treson Gore. He's not a good striker. He does not have a good chin, but he can crack and he can hit you out. He does have a decent ground game, but I also saw him get out grappled by Cedric Dumas. It doesn't matter that he took the fight on short notice. Getting out grappled by Cedric Dumas is concerning. He does not have good cardio. He's just a wrestler with no striking, but hits extremely hard. And not really any cardio or chin. That's really what we're looking at here. That's why he's the underdog. But Julian Marquez doesn't have good wrestling at all. He has very bad takedown defense. He has a decent get up game, and he has good guillotines. I could see him getting a guillotine or a front choke on Cody Brundage 110%. And we saw it in the Maki Patolo fight, where he instantly, like, he doesn't sprawl. He just goes for front chokes all the time. And eventually one sunk in the third round. And I could see that happening with Cody Brundage, who doesn't have good cardio and quits all the time. I could see Julian Marquez getting a submission on him. Otherwise, on the feet, Julian is the much better striker. He's usually pretty durable, but I think that chin, all those wars caught up to him. We saw RoboCop knock him out. We saw Zachary Reese. I watched that live, knock him out. We saw Marc Andre Barrio knock him. Oh my God. Yeah, the last three are all knockouts. That's concerning. He went from never being knocked out to getting knocked out 3 times in a row. Granted, anyone gets knocked out by RoboCop, and Zach Reese can knock out anyone. Marc Andre Barrio is concerning, but that was more of a war of attrition. But again, Cody hits that hard. He hits just as hard as Zach Reese. He definitely could knock out Julian Marquez. And that's why the over under is sitting how it is at 1.5. Do I want to touch it? Not really. Do I think Julian Marquez wins? Yes. Do I want to bet him as a favorite? Fuck no. Do I want to just dog hunt with Cody Brundage? Fuck no. So what I think I'm going to do is sit back and watch round one. And then if Cody wins round one and Julian is the dog, then I will live bet Julian Marquez. And that's the only way I'm touching this thing. If this thing goes into round two and Cody won the first round, I'm going to live bet Julian. So the pick is Julian. The bet is a live bet of Julian if he loses round one. And that takes us to the main event. Again, smash that like button, give a follow over on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Feel like absolute shit. Don't have anything, and I'm still pushing through here, so I'd appreciate the support. We have Manel Kape as I would say a big favorite, but the line is starting to get closer. I'm at minus 220 going up against Asu Almabayev at plus 180. Over under set at 4.5. Over 4.5 minus 160. Under 4.5 at plus 125. Let's start with Asu. It's Rachmanov's boy, both from Kazakhstan. He's 21-2. He has really good wrestling. He has really good jiu-jitsu. His striking, he's a little lower volume, and he's not very technical. He just throws a lot of fancy stuff, a lot of spinning back kicks, a lot of spinning back fists and back elbows, a lot of flashiness, but not excessively. Like he doesn't throw a ton. He throws like two significant strikes or 2.8 significant strikes per minute or something like that. So he is on the lower volume side, but he makes sure you see every single one of his strikes. They are all flashy and you remember all of them. But his bread and butter is his wrestling. He will get the takedown and he will get the submission predominantly in round two. It's very awkward. You go back and you look at his record. I know as he fought harder competition like Nicolau and CJ Vergara, these guys he went out there and got decisions over. But before that, I mean, Ode Osborne, rear naked choke, round two. Before that, rear naked choke, round two. Before that, decision, got a knockout in round three, rear naked choke, round two, rear naked choke, round one. That was different. Decision, rear or guillotine, round two. Choke, round two. KO, round two. He loves the second round. Like, I don't know what's going on with this guy and why. Maybe he's just a slow starter or what have you. I have no idea. But most of his wins are in the second round, so it's something to be mindful of. But on the other side, we have Manel Kape, who is going to be by far the best guy he's ever fought. Manel Kape is a very good striker. He's very quick. It's not even close when it comes to striking. Manel is a much better striker. Manel is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt at this point, and he's decent on the ground. No one really talks about that. I don't think a Sue will be able to just take him down in round two and rear naked choke him like everyone else. But I think he will be able to get the takedown. Manel Kape's takedown defense, I think, is sitting at 70%. But he hasn't fought a ton of wrestlers. He fought Makayev, and Makayev was able to win by getting takedowns. He fought Nicolau. Nicolau was able to win, but that was just a weird fight, honestly. He fought Bruno Silva, who is a striker, and he looked great. He fought Felipe dos Santos, who's a striker. He looked great. He fought David Dvorak, who's a striker. He looked great. He fought Zhalgas Zumagulov, who predominantly strikes, got a quick knockout. So when he's sitting there and he's fighting strikers, he looks great. But when he fights other wrestlers like Nicolau, when he fought Pantoja, but although they really just stood the whole time, Makayev, he seems to struggle with the wrestlers. And that's exactly what Asu is going to try to do to him. So, I don't know. Horiguchi was able to go out there and get the takedowns and get the submission. Ian McCall's a wrestler, but that was a cut stoppage in the first round. But yeah, moral of the story is he has not lost to a striker. And both of his losses in the UFC were to Muhammad Makayev, Nicolau, and Pantoja, who all generally do a wrestling game plan. So Asu is the next man up, who is a wrestler. I think these lines are off as well. Initially, I was all ready to bet Kape, but the more I did fight tape, the more I watched it. Now I'm starting to think it's dog or pass. However, I did see Asus really, really struggle with Jose Johnson cardio wise. He was getting a little tired as he had to get 9 takedowns and keep taking him down. Kape doesn't really settle on his back. So if he keeps getting up, he can tire out Asu. But at the end of the day, I think Asu will get probably the first three and then just need to survive the next 2 rounds. And I think he can do it. So the pick is going to be Kape. It's not even close on the feet. But I'll go ahead and I'll take a wrestler underdog as the bet and end up betting Asu Almabayev. But keep an eye on the fight. If Asu looks like he's starting to gas, be ready to live bet Kape because Kape is most likely going to lose at least the first 2 rounds. But if Asu's gassed out with his wrestling, get ready to live bet Kape. Otherwise, it's pre-flop. It's Asu. That's UFC Vegas 103, Kape versus Almabayev. Confidence level, not great on this card, to be 100% honest with you. I think it's going to be a fun fight card. I don't think you need to put a lot of money on this fight card. I think it's going to be a ton of finishes. Most of these fights are at 1.5. I don't think the Brundage fight goes the distance. I think that Nazaret and Esteban is going to be a barn burner. I don't know if the Gomi fight goes the distance. The Barlow fight won't go the distance. Austin Lane won't go the distance. Chepe may or may not. John Castaneda probably will. The Lucas Almeida fight probably doesn't go the distance. Like there's a lot of violence that's going to happen on this card. So sit back, don't place too much money on this card, but enjoy it. It's going to be a fun one.